Hello, my name is Anita Kozlovsky, and I am a licensed trainer of neuro-linguistic programming here in Edmonton right now, experiencing this amazing Siberian winter that descended upon us, and looking forward to going to Bali very soon. And the purpose of this webinar is to discuss the true nature of NLP and possibly provide a new perspective on what NLP is in a true sense, and what is the method, the secret behind it, as well as tell you a little bit about the upcoming event in Bali, which is taking place in Ubud on February 20th to 28th, in an amazing retreat that is taking place in this gorgeous place, which they call the Island of the Gods. So my background is neuropsychology, statistics, and also neuro-linguistic programming, which I have learned from Dr. Richard Bandler, who is my inspiration and I consider one of the greatest geniuses of the 20th century. I have been training NLP internationally for the past about 8 years, and my interest is in practice, in working with clients who typically are the kind of people that have been given up upon by mainstream therapeutic environment. Usually the individuals who come to my plate are those who were given up on by traditional psychology approach, by psychiatry, as well as people who have amazing dreams they want to accomplish and simply just don't know how. And my story is a little bit complex and also interesting, as several years ago I was in Frankfurt in Germany attending a seminar and then a concert of Ninth Symphony of Beethoven's, which is one of the greatest pieces of music. And as I was listening to this amazing rendition of this music, I realized that this man wrote this piece of music 3 years before his death, when he was completely blind and completely deaf, never hearing the music that he wrote. And yet, the same year, he were able to create another piece of music, just as massive, just as huge, just as complex, without ever being able to hear this music. And the question that came to my mind was, how did he do it? What happened in his mind so that he were able to do this? And to this day, all of us can listen to it and enjoy the very legacy of this creation. And then it dawned upon me that indeed he did create this music in time and space using a piece of paper and pen. It took him about 3 months to do it. But in reality, he did not create this music. He recreated this music, which was fully and absolutely present in his mind. And it only took time for him to create a mirror image of that which already existed inside of him, allowing him to create this piece so that when he looked down upon this piece of paper with all this writing, he was satisfied that it did reflect that which already existed inside his mind. When I thought of it this way, I started thinking of human behavior and human decisions and our results in life, and I realized that we are continually creating the Ninth Symphony in our own lives. All the results that we have in life, whatever they are, whether they are good or bad, however we name them, are only a mirror image of something that existed deep inside our minds. And it only took time for us to recreate that which already exists inside. And that was an amazing thought, because it completely changed the way I look at human behavior, at results, at what success really means. Because from that point of view, whatever it is that we experience, whatever it is that we accomplish, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's Olympic gold medal, it's all a measure of success. From an observer point of view, we have done something extremely well, extremely correctly, with expertise, in order to have created it. And then we take a position of an observer and we decide whether we like it or we don't. And that specific observation completely transformed the way that I look at therapy, at solving communication problems. And I've had clients that come from multiple environments, from therapeutic contexts, as I mentioned earlier, as well as companies, organizations that are interested in increasing their bottom lines among salespeople, increasing motivation, human resources, the whole spectrum of human community, which really is based on one particular thing, which is an understanding. So the true NLP method is a method of understanding the entire system of thinking that is required in order for people to create success in their lives. And the trainings that we provide, the internationally licensed programs, are strategically organized in such a way that we can unravel the system of thinking in ourselves and clients and make changes structurally on every level of our decision-making process across all the beliefs that are inherent to our thinking, able to create results that may have seemed impossible, and yet they are possible because there is a way to a goal if we only look at things in a correct way, in a strategic and systemic, organized fashion. So in my particular case, it doesn't really matter if a client I am seeing is a person who tells me they were depressed for 25 years. To me, they are a genius who accomplished something. Or whether it's an individual who says they have reached a stalemate in their lives and they are simply not so sure how they can take their performance to the next level, such as elite athletes who want to take their performance to the next level, or someone who wants to improve their academic performance. To me, the way that I approach those things is exactly the same. Always looking at the result as a ninth symphony of them having done something correctly, and then able to rewrite the script so that they can do things in a different and more effective and better way. So today, what I will be talking about is through NLP, the method behind the method, so to speak. I will be talking about the upcoming training that will be happening in Bali at the end of February. There will be a moment, a time where you can ask questions about things. All questions are great because questions give us an insight into how people think, and questions are the most important aspect of what we do as practitioners, because that gives us an insight how you're thinking, how your brain is working, how you organize your ideas, how you create your reality. And from that point of view, we can then go inside and do whatever is we need to do in order to improve things, to change things, or take them to the next level. So, and after that, there will be an opportunity. If you want to register, when you want to register for this program, there will be an opportunity to participate in our promotional code discount program, which gives participants a discount of $500 to participate in this event that is going to happen in Bali at the end of February. I will tell you a little bit about myself, a little more. My particular way of thinking in relation to this methodology was founded in understanding the way of thinking of the genius of Richard Bandler, and then I personally took this process levels, playing with these ideas, recreating the entire model for myself, such that it became an ongoing process of discovery. It's been a journey of adventure and inspiration, and every person that I see as a client is an entirely new platform of learning, of discovery, of aha moment, of something that inspires new ideas. It's been a process of crazy discovery, of fun, of playfulness, always showing me that there is a new way of thinking and the next step to be taken in order to expand our awareness and reach deep inside into our creative potential. And as long as we remain creatively engaged and curious, things become and maintain being exciting. And key to all learning is excitement, because excitement keeps us involved. It keeps us curious. It keeps us in that childlike state of mind which allows us to explore things in unencumbered ways. When you are 2 years old and 3 years old and discovered toys in the playground and started to discover how fast you can run when you initially couldn't walk, you never asked yourself and said, oh my gosh, I cannot walk because I fell down. It was something which inspired you to do it better the next time. And that is the attitude that we need to have in order to be effective with this amazing methodology, which allows us to do some almost magical things in a very creative, very spontaneous, very quick, and very exciting way. People say, wow, how did you do this? Well, I did it because I understand how it works, and we can teach you the same way of thinking, which will allow you to go deep inside your creative potential and unravel the secrets of the human mind, which are inherently available to all of us if we ask the right questions. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take you to a PowerPoint presentation that will go through the whole presentation here. After that, there will be a moment where you can ask questions. All questions are welcome. And then there will be an opportunity to register for this program that I will share some information with you about. Okay? So let us do this. I'm going to this PowerPoint, learning how to do this properly. Okay? And here we are. What you see in front of you, I hope, is a slide which says True NLP, the method, and what is it? So let's talk about True NLP and where did this True NLP word came from? Why is it true versus untrue? Well, there are many different ways of looking at NLP, which is the study of human subjective experience, and there is a lot of schools of thought that are very focused on techniques. There are many techniques that we have available to us, hundreds of them, in fact. And I always tell people at the beginning of all my programs that you will learn a great number of techniques, which are phenomenal and life-changing, but all these techniques are completely and absolutely useless, totally useless, unless you understand the system into which they are to be applied. Unless you understand what is the system of thinking into which you apply those techniques, you cannot possibly be effective. And I will give you an example of this from my own personal life. Once upon a time, I was in England, and a client appeared in front of me who said that he had a major problem, and the problem was phobia of confined spaces. The initial inkling of a practitioner would be to say, okay, let's do a classic technique of phobia cure and get rid of this. But it would have been a cardinal mistake because I had to first figure out whether he really had a phobia and what was he really afraid of. Through many processes of asking different questions, which is the art of doing this whole thing, I discovered that indeed he had fear, which he described as pounding headaches and confined, tight feelings in his neck and inability to sleep, all the classic symptoms of fear, that he years ago was in Liverpool during a soccer game when there was riots and this whole thing, the stands collapsed upon him, and he found himself buried under a pile of people and different kind of seats, scared to die. So the fear that he had was not really the fear of confined spaces, but the fear of being crushed by people. And how did I find that out? I asked him some questions. I said, okay, so do you work? And he said, yes. All right. So what car do you drive? Toyota Corolla. I said, that must be one heck of a huge Toyota that you have. It seems like a rather small space. And he says, no, I feel fine driving. So I knew right there and then that his fear was not that of small spaces, but of something else. So then I kept on asking him, okay, so have you been to a city where there is a tall building and you can ride an elevator? And he says, yes. Imagine yourself getting onto an elevator. Can you do that? Yes. Okay. How do you feel? I feel good. He now rides to the first floor where it stops. A couple people enter this elevator. I said, how do you feel? I feel fine. And now it keeps on going to the 5th floor. 3 people enter the elevator. How do you feel? I feel all right, but I can hear hesitation in his voice. And then I know that there is something connected to humans entering the space within which he exists, which does not tell me he's afraid of small spaces, but rather of people encroaching upon him. So now we ride to the 20th floor, where 3 more people enter the elevator. And at this point, he tells me that he is extremely uncomfortable. So I know that his fear is related to humanity and not small spaces, which led me to understand that the whole structure, which he described as phobia of small spaces, was not really fear of small spaces, but something different. Therefore, the techniques that we used to get rid of this fear was completely different than we would have used had we accepted that he had a phobia of small spaces. So the method of true NLP really is the method of understanding the structure, the system of thinking, and using the techniques in a strategic, systemic way to make the change. Is not a technique-based method, but rather a strategic and systemic way of approaching global issues, as well as process of creation, which is completely different from talking about using various techniques and memorizing them, because those are most of the time not effective if we have no idea what we're doing. So what is about NLP, a true NLP? NLP is the art of thinking and creating, because we are always thinking, we are always creating, and our brain is always engaged in creating something. If you look at your own life right now, all the results which you have at this moment, whatever they are, in your profession, in your personal life, in your achievement of your dreams, are really your ninth symphony. You've created those outcomes, and they are inherently successful. You've designed them, you executed them, and in some cases you became an absolute expert. For example, a fellow who tells me that he was depressed for 20 years and never wasn't, is really telling me that he mastered it and became a genius of that. Now, if I talk to this individual, I tell him, you've really told me that you are extremely successful in a particular area of your life. Can you imagine what would it be like if you applied the same strategy to a different aspect of your life? How successful could you be across the board? It really is that simple. Now, what is NLP? What I want you to do now is imagine, if you have an imagination, which you all do, a square, a large square, and a circle inside of it, a dark circle that is filled in, like a circle in a square. If you look inside that circle contains everything that does not exist outside that circle. In other words, if we think of human problem and what we focus on, it really is what's contained inside that circle, but all the possibilities that the circle isn't exist outside. So, in other ways, NLP, in a true fashion, a true method of NLP is allowing us to expand our minds beyond the circle, beyond the limitation, into that vast, infinite space of possibilities within which solutions exist, dreams can be realized, and ninth symphony is written. It is also the tool to open door to possibilities, which creates choice. There always is a choice, and the lack of choice is only a perception, what we sometimes hypnotize ourselves to believe. But if we only expand our perception and become an observer of ourselves, we may begin to notice that things become different. The same way as if looking at an ocean from inside the ocean is very different than observing it from a point of view of a camera positioned on the moon. So it is a door to possibilities, allowing us to make different decisions. We know that where choice exists, personal power exists. Human beings have problems only when they perceive no choice, when they feel stuck in a particular positions and options are not necessarily available to them in their minds. The moment we open the door to possibilities, and a person has a choice of stepping through that door into possibilities or remaining inside the prison of their own mind, is a position of personal power, because it is a position of decision. Someone has decided where they want to be. And the moment they've made a decision and do not feel that the decision was made for them, they are inherently in a position of personal power and choice. And that's the way it works. A problem is only a problem when people don't perceive options. Options perceived give us choice, and NLP is about opening the door to possibilities and freedom of choice, which expands our creative potential and allows us to live an optimal life. Now, for some of you who have not been exposed to NLP or perhaps do not know what NLP is, I'm going to give you a little bit of a short version of this whole thing, how it all happened. It all happened back in 1971 when Richard Bandler and Grinder got together and started developing this model, which is called NLP. Richard was a student of psychology at the University of Santa Cruz and was assigned a particular summer project where his job as a young guy was to observe some very successful therapists doing work with clients and document this work and create actual transcripts of this particular successful sessions of therapists that seem to have been extremely successful and achieved amazing results in their work. After a few weeks of this work and documenting the sessions, he realized that something was taking place, something interesting, which he didn't quite yet understand, but sufficiently curiosity inspiring, that he took all these transcripts to a professor of linguistics who was a student of famous Noam Chomsky, John Grinder, and asked him to have a look at this particular paper and see if there were any particular patterns that he could see in those transcripts. Patterns on the side of the clients, what were they saying, also the patterns of how the questions were formulated from the side of a successful therapist. And when Grinder looked down upon this, he realized that some exciting and fascinating things were taking place in the way those people were communicating. People who were clients were disclosing their challenges in response to specifically designed questions that those therapists were asking. And then, through asking these questions, the therapists were able to lead the clients to a solution where the problems were no longer a function of their reality. They talked themselves out of it. And that led to creation of an amazing book, which was called The Structure of Magic, which is the DNA of this whole methodology, which then served as a foundation to further work that these people were involved in observing very famous hypnotist, Milton Erickson, who was considered a magician, as what he were able to do, no one else could. And he was even asked by the Psychiatric Society, whatever it existed at that time, that he was told that he was probably practicing medicine in a way that was not orthodox and challenged. And when he was called to a hearing about this, the last thing that these people remember was him walking into a room where they were to ask him questions. And when Richard and John observed him working with clients, they documented also language patterns and specific linguistic things that he did in order to elicit extraordinary and amazing change. This became the second part of this methodology, which is called the Milton model, which is the model of influence, which we use with great effect in various contexts and therapeutically, where it all started, but also to motivate and inspire people and elicit change in a very conversational and a very kind of easy-flowing way, which is completely different from the traditional way that those things are done. Now, what is NLP? So many ways of looking at it. It is a study of success, really, because when you come to me as a client and describe a problem that you may have had for a long time, I will look at it from a point of view of someone who is a student of success. You've done it well. You know how to do it. You know when to do it, when to have it, and you also have a method of maintaining it. Someone that describes their things at which they succeeded is, to me, is a master, someone who became an expert in something. You could be an expert of depression, you could be an expert of anxiety, you could be an expert in communication, you could be an expert in finding creative solutions to complex problems. Any pattern of human behavior, no matter how unresourceful or from a point of view of a person unsatisfying, if stable, is really a measure of success, is a measure of even genius, which is a very different way of looking at things, as One client of mine who was a 28-year-old guy who lived with his parents, his mother actually, she cooked, cleaned, and did things for him. He never had a girlfriend, he never had a job, he never stepped outside the confines of this home, was heavily depressed. When he told me he was depressed, I looked at him and I said, well, I would be too if I were in your position, which he didn't quite like. He did it extremely well, and I said to him, so can you imagine if that level of expertise which you have just displayed and described to me, if you could apply to a different context of your life, how successful could you be? You could be an absolute master of any field that you want. Because to me, a successful depressive is as successful as an accomplished athlete, except in a very different field. Master the particular way of being and doing things, which is very, very interesting as it leads us to a concept of NLP, which is called modeling. If we know how things are done, we can recreate them, we can actually model things and get to amazing results way faster than we would otherwise. So modeling is a very big principle behind this whole methodology. And as a practitioner, when I see a client in front of me, I'm going to ask myself certain questions. How specifically does this person do it so that he became so good at whatever he does in his mind? Because the moment I understand how he does it, and I recreate it for myself in my mind, I have all the information that I need in order to make changes and help him do something different. But before I can do it, I have to first understand what's really going on in that head. And whatever that person presents me with is not necessarily what is, which is the art of strategic asking questions, which completely opens our doors to understanding of how people think and gives us the tool to make changes in a very specific, very strategic, and very powerful way. It's almost like if you were working in an Area 51, which is a high security area where alien research is being done, whatever people are saying that is, and your boss came to your office and gave you an object which you've never seen before, and he says, you have exactly 30 days during which you have to make this object a better object. Before you can make any changes to actually make it better, you have to have some questions answered in your mind. One of them being, what exactly is that object? What is it? What was it made of? What materials went into its creation? What was the process of constructing that object? And next, what exactly was the intent behind them in the mind of a person who created this object? Why did they design it? For what purpose? You've got to understand every aspect of this whole thing in order to be able to make any constructive changes to this object. So when we look at human beings in the way they communicate with us, whatever they're presenting to us is kind of similar to that alien object in Area 51. We can assume things about what they are saying, but we cannot make any changes unless we understand what that thing really is. What is the model of the reality? How did they construct it? What beliefs go into their mind, exist in their minds to make it so logical to them? And what is the real intent behind it? Because the intent sometimes is very deeply hidden, and all things that people do and accomplish in life are a reflection of an intent. For instance, someone who has experienced difficulties in let's say abuse as a child, suddenly 30 years later they are 150 pounds overweight. The intent behind this weight gain, which they find unhappy, really is to protect themselves. So the intent is hidden, and their fat serves the function of protection. It's a safety device. So we always reverse engineer all these things that exist that we can observe and see into its parts, so that we really understand that whatever it is that we're looking at really is what we think it is, which often is quite different from what we originally anticipate. Like a fellow who was afraid of, says small spaces, really was afraid of being crushed by people in any context. Now, what is NLP? It's a study of patterns of behavior and thinking. Your brain and my brain and every human brain is an amazing device. It's a machine which loves patterns and habits. Once it learns something, it likes to default back to that pattern and repeat it because it's comfortable, it's easy. It's sort of like a automatic pilot in a plane or a car, except that sometimes those patterns are not necessarily the most effective in our lives. Because if a pattern is to, let's say, procrastinate in doing something, the pattern is successful as it repeats itself, but we may not accomplish things that we really want to get to. So NLP is a study of patterns, patterns of thinking, patterns of behaviors, and stable patterns that people default to and build their lives around. Patterns are important because they give us a sense of safety, predictability. We can go back and kind of anticipate what's going to happen. At the same time, they may be quite limiting because if we do not change things, we sort of become subject to decay and what we call entropy. In order to grow and expand and become successful, we have to continually change. The same way as if running up a hill with the same pace would lead us to stopping and eventually running backwards. We have to accelerate in order to keep on moving. So if you want to move in your life, make changes and expand and achieve some dreams, you've got to be shifting and moving and accelerating. Staying in the same pattern leads to decay, which is a default of some people who find themselves stuck in situations they do not seem to find an exit from, which is really a pattern which can be changed instantly, as every thought is a seed of opportunity to create something different. If you look at your life at this moment right now, however it feels, whatever it is a successful outcome of some decisions that you've made, some beliefs that you have, and some foundational decision that you once made, that this is the way life is. But it may not necessarily be so. Opportunities to think in a different way always exist, and all invention started with a single idea, with a thought that may not have been considered before. The same way as tomorrow is a future of today. And today is the day that you are planting this seed for your life for tomorrow. If you repeat the same thing over and over again without any change, the possibility of change does not exist. If you step outside of it and plant a seed of possibilities, things become different. Suddenly, the reality expands, including all the options that may not have been immediately available. So NLP is a tool to model patterns as well. For me to help a client with whatever problems they come to me with, I need to understand the pattern of their thinking and behavior so I can model it in myself, recreate it, and understand what exactly and how that person does those things so well. NLP is really a question of the how, not so much even the what, but the process which people engage in order to create something. What is the method that Beethoven used so that he were able to create 9 symphonies in 3 months? What is the method that allowed Michael Phelps to achieve world records and get Olympic gold so many times? What is the method that Billy uses to be continually depressed and maintains himself in that state? How does he do it so he does it so well? When I understand the how, I can change the how. I can install and create an entirely new process, facilitate change, which is really the process of change, which is so powerful because there is continuous opportunity for movement, for transition, for changing things. We are always painting canvas of our lives and creating new realities in this amazing medium which is called life. Nothing is static and everything is able to be changed if we only apply our minds in a different way, creating absolute masterpieces, sometimes with a single idea. So to become an agent of change, whether we are parenting or raising children or helping clients in a therapeutic environment or facilitating change on a large organizational scale, we have to first understand how the system that we are dealing with functions and has managed to do it. And on the basis of what has already been created, we can create new ideas and new patterns, add some new colors to the canvas, create a new question, provide a new answer, perhaps have a new point of view on things that we understand. And that is exciting about this whole true NLP methodology. What is NLP? It's a philosophical framework. We know and believe that all human beings, regardless of who they are capable of change. Every human being has a capability of making a different decision, of taking a different step, of doing something in a different fashion. And also, the key to all this is we believe that human beings, the value of a human being, no matter who they are and where they come from, remains constant. All human beings are significant, important, inherently valuable, and capable of change. And it's only their behavior and beliefs that govern it that can be subject to change, and we may or may not agree with. But the value of a human being who sits across from us, no matter what behaviors they were engaged in, as a human being on a principle level, is unchangeable. Every human has worth, is important, significant, capable of change, and worthy of it. And we never make changes at the level of who the human being is, but only at the level of behavior and perhaps decisions and beliefs that people have. To me, someone who is engaged in a non-effective behavior, such as, let's say, drinking or criminal behavior even, is really engaging in a non-effective and non-ecological way of acting, supported by some ineffective beliefs. But underneath all this, there is a human being who is worthy of my attention and who is capable of change. And that's how we look at every human being that we see as clients or in the world at large, which is full of people who are our partners in designing realities and exchanging ideas. Now, what is NLP? We believe that all human behavior serves a useful function by meeting some fundamental human needs. And you may say, how is that possible? How does it work? Well, let's have a look at someone who, let's say, has been drinking a significant amount of alcohol. On the surface level, they are doing something which is very harmful to them and inherently damaging to themselves. And we may say, why are they doing that? They're destroying their lives. They're consciously damaging their liver, frying their stomach, whatever they're doing, and destroying their relationships and bank account. It doesn't work. But if you look behind the scenes, you may realize that this behavior is meeting some needs. Perhaps that person identified themselves as an alcoholic, and as a result of it, they are getting a lot of attention. Maybe they are getting attention from a therapist or someone in an AA meeting, and they are looking forward to those meetings where maybe they receive significance by people paying attention to them. Perhaps they are stressed and scared of something, and the moment they drink that glass of alcohol, the fear temporarily goes away. It numbs their feelings, their sensations, their emotions. So it is being used as a useful device in their lives. It may not be working in the global scope of their lives, but it sufficiently meets some of their needs. And until I understand what those needs are and how this ineffective and painful behavior meets fundamental needs of that individual, I will never be able to help them, because that person found one way through which they are meeting some of their fundamental human needs. And all humans, regardless of who they are, where they come from, what age, sex, cultural background they are, have the same exact human needs, which one way or another they will achieve or meet in ecological and effective ways, and sometimes in ways that are devastating to some other aspects of their lives. But we are always seeking to meet our needs, and those needs are safety and predictability. We all want to know that we are safe and we can count on tomorrow to exist. Someone who can safely drink a glass of alcohol and safely forget about the pain that they are feeling emotionally is really meeting their needs of safety and predictability. We also need change. In order to grow, we have to move, we have to change, we have to have that tension inside of us where we are continually learning and expanding and being challenged. Otherwise, we become kind of complacent and subject to distraction and entropy. If we run the same pace going uphill, eventually we'll be going backwards and stop. So we've got to be challenged, we've got to be sufficiently curious about what happens next and have a bit of a creative stress in order to grow. We also need to have love and connections with others, because otherwise we feel lonely and isolated and separated. We are part of a community of global human village where we want to be part of some kind of connection with others. There is also contribution and legacy. Somehow a need deep inside to be immortal, not to die, to leave something behind which will keep our name and our being one way or another alive, either through our work or our children or gratitude of people whom we have helped, or some kind of contribution somewhere in some ways that puts our name on this canvas of life and makes us immortal in one way or another. And underlying all of this is a need to feel significant and important. Every human being wants to know that they count, that they matter, that they are important, and that their beingness is significant enough to be recognized as that. So that when we talk to human beings, whether in a format of a client or a friend or any other context where human beings exist, when we give people that feeling of significance, pay attention in this moment to them as an important human being, we've given them the gift, and major success in helping them is taking place. Because the moment you acknowledge somehow someone in some ways that they matter, they become connected to you on some fundamental level. And an example of that would be, let's say, someone with whom you completely and absolutely disagree across the board. The values that they present and live by do not correspond with yours. Their beliefs are not necessarily the same as yours. They have a different attitude towards life, bringing up children, even the way to interact with others. How can you possibly agree with that human being? How can you give them a sense of significance? Well, it's quite simple. By virtue of sitting in front of them and saying, I understand that you have beliefs, and those are very different from mine, and everything that you believe in is completely different from what I believe in, but I'm willing to listen to you. You've already acknowledged them and given them a sense of significance where they are willing to open up and share with you whatever it is, because you've taken the first step to recognize them on a very fundamental and human level. Disagreeing on subjects or issues, behaviors, and values is very different than disqualifying a human being who is sitting in front of you. You may agree across the board on every aspect of their lives, but if you agree that they matter and they are important as a human being and give them this experience, that human being is willing to is willing to move forward and is really capable of being led in some kind of constructive direction if that's what you are doing. At least you can communicate with them and agree to disagree, which is an agreement. And that in itself is quite an accomplishment, as it reduces any conflict, because conflict is very different from disagreement. Disagreement happens at the level of an issue, of things that people believe or don't believe in. Conflict is a sense of war over oneself. It's a war for oneself. It's a fight to protect oneself through an idea. You may accept someone and disagree with their behavior and point of view, or you may reject a human being, at which point they become an enemy. And that's the difference that makes the difference in situations of conflict in a family or friends or any other situation where human beings exist. What is NLP? Well, it is the most powerful model in applied psychology, at least according to me, And it is so important and powerful because it works and we can test our work. We can actually measure or see the difference that happens as a result of using it. We can strategically apply methodologies and techniques to the whole system of thinking of a human being, and we can see the change. People suddenly that have had problems for a number of years will say, my gosh, I have no idea what this problem is. I don't have anxiety anymore. My pain is gone. I feel much more relaxed, where for years I had tension headaches. I see options where I couldn't see them. The change that you can see in front of you with this methodology is absolutely phenomenal. You can literally see people transform. People can access their memories, are able to achieve much higher results in school. Kids can remember things better. People eliminate all kinds of physical problems and pains, a lot of which are related to something that happens inside their minds. People get rid of emotional problems which have been plaguing them for years. People become transformed. And it works because we can see and evaluate that change, which makes it so incredible. Now, what is NLP? We've been talking about this for a while, and if you can imagine a massive mountain of ice in front of you somewhere on an ocean, you can see the tip of an iceberg that's sticking out of this water, but underneath there is that whole massive, hidden, huge chunk of ice that is you cannot possibly see. That chunk of ice is what in a human mind I would call other than conscious mind, which is that hidden engine that drives human behaviors and values, where all the beliefs are hidden, all the reasons are locked, where the strategies have been learned and memorized, where a belief about who I am is residing, a platform from which I design my own reality. All of that is the engine that drives behaviors and eventually results in life. And through NLP method, we go inside, deep into that structure, that engine that governs our results. And if we make some changes at that level, we can change those results fairly quickly. We are really interested in how this whole system operates, what is hidden, what exists that makes it possible, whatever it is. The same as if you listen to a beautiful piece of music, you may experience the music and feel it inside that it's beautiful, that it's wonderful, but you don't ask yourself questions. How did it come to be? What was the mindset of a particular composer that made it work? What is the magic behind the creation of an amazing poem or a sculpture? You just feel it and you just know that it's wonderful. NLP allows us to go behind the scenes and really understand the mechanism, the mindset, the engine that made these wonderful things possible. What happened in the mind of Beethoven that you were able to write it in 3 months, this Ninth Symphony? How did Michelangelo decide that this particular piece of stone would have become one of the most famous sculptures, the Pietà, that people still see and watch with amazement? What was the mindset, the inspiration behind some of the greatest pieces of literature and poems? What happened behind the scenes which resulted in this, what we enjoy today? What made it possible? And that is what NLP allows us to do. It is also a system of thinking which frames powerful techniques. As I said, techniques, we have hundreds of them and they are very powerful, but only as effective as understanding the system into which they have been applied. Unless I know what's going on in the mind of a person in front of me, I cannot possibly effectively apply any technique, for a simple reason that I would be shooting bullets into an unknown. So NLP, a true NLP, allows me to really understand the system, that particular alien object that I talked about earlier, understand every aspect of it so I can apply techniques and become a sculptor shaping things and a painter painting canvas, a composer composing new realities. And that is what makes it so amazingly powerful and allows us to become magical transformational agents of change, each and every single one of us, in a very easy and rather I wouldn't say simple, but elegant manner. Now, let us talk a little bit about human behavior. What are some fundamental truths about all human beings, including myself and you and everyone else? Fact of the matter is that all behaviors that we engage in, even the ones that we may see as ineffective in another human being, make sense to a person who is engaged in them. I may look at someone and say, why on earth is this person repeating the same mistake over and over again? Why are they choosing the same partner, even though what changes is only the name of and the face of an individual, otherwise they are the same person? How is it that they're not learning from their mistakes? How come they don't see the daylight? How come they haven't learned anything from their past? The truth is that whatever this person is doing in choosing a partner or being stuck in a problem makes absolute and perfect sense to them. They have reasons to do it. They do it logically. They justify it, and it makes sense to them. They have their own framework, their own reality, which allows them to create it in this manner. And I may or may not agree with it, but their reality has absolutely nothing to do with mine. They live inside the model of their world, which makes sense to them. They may not be happy in it, but they are logical in it. And until I understand how they build this reality, what is the logic behind it, what makes sense to them, I cannot possibly help them. And it is true about a child that is having problems, a client who is sitting in front of me, or any other human being. A successful person who is a successful depressive has a system of beliefs which make absolute and perfect sense to them. It makes sense to them. They have reasons. They can justify it, they understand it, they know when to do it, they know how to do it. They have a system which allows them to maintain it and be successful doing it. It's their own universe in which they became an absolute master and a genius, their own particular engine of creating reality. So, what is a practitioner of NLP? If when you become a practitioner, what is a true NLP practitioner? Who is that person? Who am I working with clients? Who are you going to be when you work with clients? And who are you when you apply this methodology in any context of life? Well, you are kind of an archaeologist because you are digging really deep inside and excavating things which are hidden, discovering the gems and truths and particular realities. You become a very careful archaeologist that is excavating some treasures from the mind of a person. You are also a surgeon because you have to slice through all those things piece by piece. And when you look at it from an objective point of view of someone who says, oh, wow, that's an interesting thing, versus saying, oh my God, he has cancer, that looks so bad. You take a position of a precise surgeon who is slicing through these layers deep inside the subconscious mind. You are also an engineer because you are de-engineering the reality that someone created, but you are also building something else, constructing new realities, new systems of beliefs, new possibilities. You are an engineer helping a person create a new model of possibilities, designing outcomes, achieving goals, reaching their dreams. You are also kind of an artist who is helping people, including yourself, paint new canvas on this platform of life, adding new color, putting some magic, creating new questions, becoming playful with possibilities. And in that way, you are also a magician because at the end of the day, the results which you achieve are absolutely magical. People will say, wow, I've suffered for all those years and now I am free of this. Or, wow, I never knew I could do it. I never knew I could spell and now I can spell. I've had children that came to me as clients who couldn't spell a word and within an hour could spell words such as sophisticated backwards and felt successful having access that visual aspect of their mind, which allowed them to create images and pictures and start writing things backwards instead of struggling in a traditional way of linear thinking. So we really are magicians. We are creating magic in the lives of others, opening doors to possibilities, We are also very precise and very technical, but also very artistic and creative. And when we apply the NLP process of change, we have to ask some questions in respect to ourselves when we are designing our own lives or others, if we are dealing with clients. Where am I exactly? What is my reality right now? Where am I going? What is it that I want? What is my dream? What is my outcome? Next question would be, how am I going to bridge that difference between where I'm going, where am I now? How am I going to get there? And finally, how do I know that I've arrived? How do I know that I am successful? How do I know that I've made the change? How do I know that I'm there, where I've been wanting to be, so that I have an opportunity to celebrate and give myself a standing ovation for having arrived? And that's really important, because a lot of people keep on racing that race of life and achieving things and dreaming dreams and never stop to think, to notice where they are and what they've accomplished, what they've done, giving themselves a pat on the back saying, wow, job well done, I've made it, I am here. It's time to give myself a hug and perhaps appreciate my own accomplishment. I've made it this far. I am powerful, I'm successful, I'm creative. I am an extraordinary being who made it up to this point. And that is important. So when we want to facilitate change as a practitioner, let's say you imagine yourself with a human being who is sitting in front of you. You have to remember three, what we call perceptual positions. I would have 3 points of view. And here is an analogy. You are going to a theater and you are seeing a performance. Let's say Hamlet by Shakespeare. And the first night you are watching a performance which really touches you deeply, which moves you, which inspires some thinking, creative ideas, perhaps even disturbing thoughts. You've been moved and you're thinking about it. And next day, you go to the same theater, the same props, the same building, a different actor. A different experience, kind of flat, nothing really happens. Nothing much, the same text, the same words, the same props, the same building, the same seats, and yet everything is quite different. What's the difference? The difference is that the person, the first night, who touched your heart is a person who was able to step into 3 different points of view at the same time. His own position, knowing what he was doing, obviously an expert, understanding the character of Hamlet and doing what he does well on stage. But at the same time, he was able to transport himself into your mind. And from your point of view, ask himself a question. What is it that I need right now as a spectator of this performance to feel, to experience, to be inspired? And then, from a third point of view, you were able to deliver that which you needed so that you would get it, what he was delivering, so that you would be inspired, you would be deeply touched, you would be perhaps creatively challenged. So in order to be effective with people, you have to be very careful to be present in 3 positions at the same time. Your own, as yourself, knowing who you are, what you want, what your values, beliefs are. Be able to step forward, almost to the mind of a person that you're talking to, and ask them, ask yourself, what is it that I need? What is it that I want? What is important to me right now? What is it that I'm perceiving? And from an observer point of view, decide what is important in this communication. Why are you there in the first place? And how do you know that you've arrived? Have you solved the conflict? Or have you solved the problem? Have you facilitated change? Have you inspired them to understand things in a different way? Have you given them reasons to decide to change their position on something? Have you succeeded? And you can only be successful if you exist simultaneously in those 3 positions. Because if you are locked in your own, you become very selfish, self-centered, and not available to another person. If you step only to the second one, you become a doormat, subject to other people's whims and behaviors. If you become only an observer, then you become kind of an airy-fairy person who is always thinking of global things but never takes any action. You've got to be present in 3 of those at the same time. You've got to be an artist who is designing ideas. You have to imagine what the final product looks like. You have to do those things. And now, what kind of questions do you ask yourself from those positions, from different points of view? Well, first, you've got to know what it is that I need to know to accomplish with you to be satisfied that I were able to help you. Second, I know from your point of view what you need and what you want. I've stepped into your mind and I understand what your needs, your desires are. And from the third, we both know that we have arrived and we are both satisfied. I'm satisfied that I've helped you. You are satisfied that you have been helped. And globally, we are both satisfied that we've achieved what we came together for. And people usually disagree, not necessarily on what they want, but on what they believe is taking place. And that's, to achieve that understanding, you have to be able to exist in those three perceptual positions, which are points of view, in order to be an effective communicator, to be able to influence people, in order to be able to help anyone, to facilitate any kind of change that is lasting and permanent and profound. At the end of the day, it also has to be good for you, good for me, and good for the world at large. If I am helping you and you want to be helped, and you are satisfied that at the end of the day you needed my help, we are all satisfied that we've done a heck of a good job and it's actually ecological. But if I only help you because I think that I need to change you, but you don't want to be changed, my approach is not ecological, because things can only happen with the permission of a person whom I'm actually helping. So as a practitioner, as a good parent, as a good spouse, I need to always be aware 100% of the time what it is that you really want, what it is that you really need. And is the change really a function of what I want, or is it something that works for both of us? Only then does it make sense to help anybody. And once upon a time, someone very intelligent, and I think it was Richard Bandler, he said something profound which remained present in my mind throughout the years of doing this work with people. It takes adequate planning to feel bad. If you are planning that things will not work and they will be painful, they inevitably will be. But if you plan to feel fantastic and you plan to put on your expectation on the road of your future, expectations of feeling fantastic, of achieving amazing things, of creating magic, inevitably it's going to happen, because things are shaped by our intent. There is even some research that is being done in physics labs around the world of how the mind, the thoughts of a researcher can shape the actual behavior of electrons in plasma. That is amazing. If we can make change at this very microscopic level, we can also change things that are massive in life, because all big things consist of tiny elements. We are actively the designer of our own life. We are the artist who is painting the canvas of life. We are the actor who is playing the main role. We are the script writer, the set designer. And the movies in our minds are not any different than the movies you watch in audience theaters, except they happen inside our own minds and you play all those roles. The question is, what role do you want to play? And how do you want to feel? Because it takes the same amount of planning to feel great. And the question is, why not? Why not feel amazing? Why not dream big dreams? Why not step from a position of stuckedness into possibilities? Why not explore new territories? Why not reach out and touch someone with compassion? Why not let go of things that have been disturbing? Why not let go of pain and embrace possibility? Why not allow yourself to heal yourself? Why not see beauty instead of mediocrity? Why not search for meaning in places that seemed meaningless? Why not live a life that is magical, as it is possible? Today is the future of yesterday, the same as tomorrow is the future of today. And the seed that you're planting it will grow into a tree of reality, which you have created for yourself. And the change is possible every moment. So now, I will tell you a little bit about the NLP trainings and this event that is taking place in Bali at the end of February, and all our trainings, which are many fundamentally similar, but also very different. That each one of them is a canvas of possibility. This is an 8-day program where you are going to learn that methodology from scratch if you have never been exposed to it. It is designed in such a way that in 8 days you can learn this methodology and become creative with it. The learning process that you will be involved in is quite different from what you've been used to. You will learn through observation of demonstrations, through cognitive learning when you actually learn what you are learning. You will practice every step of the way, every aspect of it, such that it builds upon itself. And at the end of the day, you will reach a level where you will say to yourself, wow, I never knew that I were able to do it. You will become unconsciously competent, able to deal with some very complex issues in a very creative fashion. And that will happen spontaneously at the end of the day, but you will almost unconsciously be able to work with people, understand what happens in their minds, communicate effectively, solve problems, get rid of painful states of where people feel stuck, get rid of emotional blocks that you personally may have had, or help others get rid of them. You'll be able to enhance your own memory, become more creative, step into your own creative potential, your own genius, and become generative with these ideas, as you will have received the tools, the particular software in your brain that will allow you to do those things in a creative way. And the process will never stop. It's always evolving and always changing. A process that will have changed your whole life, completely transformed the way it has transformed me, and continues doing so, filling my life with curiosity, excitement, passion, and looking forward to the next day, because I know that something new and exciting is going to happen in it. And it always does.